Get started. If everybody's okay with it. Denise, you ready?
Yeah, do you think you could spotlight me and make sure everybody's
Yeah,
mic is muted,
yeah.
please?
I'm gonna let me share. I'm gonna make a few remarks,
Oh,
and
go.
and then I'll introduce you, and then
Okay.
my remarks they go no longer than 40 minutes. So it'll be, but I'll make a couple of remarks and a few announcements and that kind of thing, and then I'll introduce you, and then we'll get going. So I want to welcome everybody to the First Coast Free Thought Society Zoom room. The First Coast Free Thought Society is an organization of individuals who prefer science and reason over religious dogma and fanaticism. We've enjoyed the non-religious community of Northeast Florida and beyond since 1998. We are also the proud Jacksonville chapter of the American Humanist Association, and we're part of a coalition of nonprofit organizations who have come together to advocate for a connected network of parks and green spaces in downtown Jacksonville called Riverfront Parks Now. We're on Facebook, X, Meetup, Instagram, and YouTube. We meet in person socially through our secular Sunday gatherings in the park, our book and movie discussion groups, and sometimes at a local watering hole, which next will be this coming Sunday, September 22nd, for our autumnal equinox party at Tommy Bahama Marlin Bar in the Down Center. Our next movie discussion is Tuesday, September 23rd at 6:30 p.m. on Zoom, when we'll chat about Bob Fosse's biopic, All That Jazz. Our next book for discussion is The Wager by David Grann on October 6th. Our Freethinker newsletter is published monthly, to which we invite your readership, feedback, and submissions. Now, a reminder to all contributors, our submissions are due for our October issues no later than this coming Sunday, September 22nd. You may learn all about what I just mentioned at our website, fcfs.org. So I want to welcome everybody. We're all volunteers, and we do incur some expenses, largely promotion. We have promoted online, on the radio, direct mail, and in print. And if you know of a viable place for us to promote, please share it with us. We look forward to a provocative lineup of exciting speakers. Our next meeting will be Monday, October 21st, when we will Zoom the Rob Reiner documentary about the rise of Christian nationalism, God and country. And I'm pretty confident that a robust discussion will follow our screening. On November 18th, our speaker will be Dr. Lev Gasparov, who will offer a primer about why physics is important in our lives. Our December 16th meeting is in person for our annual Human Lights celebration. And then next year, on January 20th, 2025, our speaker is scheduled for a return visit, author Catherine Stewart, who wrote several books, including The Power Worshippers, Inside the Dangerous Rise of Religious Nationalism, which also served as the basis for the documentary film God and Country. Sign on to our Meetup page, sign up for our newsletter and email announcements at our website, stay in touch. If you have an idea for a speaker, please let us know. We are actively seeking board members for 2025. We meet once a quarter on Zoom. If you're interested or know of someone who might be interested, please let us know. Now, tonight, we are pleased to host our distinguished guest, sociologist Dr. Denise Rose, who will offer a presentation titled Eat Plants, Not Your Pets. No, wait, no. Eat plants, optimize your health through whole food, plant-based eating. An introduction to the evidence-based research and many benefits of eating whole food, plant-based diet to prevent, halt, and reverse chronic disease. Please use the Zoom hand raise feature found at the reactions button to raise your hand following the presentation during the Q&A. Should you prefer, you may message a question via the Zoom chat. Now let's mute our mic until it's time to speak. Please know we are recording this for posterity and presentation on our YouTube channel. As a side note, we are open to the public. We don't know what might be said during our Q&A discussions. Sometimes we cringe, sometimes we nod quiet approval, and sometimes we cheer. So we always look forward to a robust civil discussion. Let's begin by appreciating Dr. Rose for graciously offering us her time, expertise, and insights. So Denise, we are all yours.
Great. And could you spotlight me so we see that?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll make sure I do that.
Do it. Yeah, so that I can see myself here, and then you'll have that for the recording.
Yes.
Right. And let me see, get to full screen for myself. Okay, and I just need to move something off my screen, so just give me a moment here. Okay, so hi everybody, and Denise, just call me that.
All right.
And I just want to let you know how I got to you. Back in the spring, you had a guest speaker, somebody who I followed for probably 30 years, went to all her concerts when they were in Chicago, and that was Holly Near. So if any of you had attended that, you know, I was listening in because I loved her. And just a quick little note about her. I won't get into the whole backstory, but for my 60th birthday, when I was still back in Chicago, Holly came to do a concert in honor of Woody Guthrie. And my ex-husband was one of the organizers of that, and so was in communication with her. And he actually got her to come to my house for lunch for my 60th birthday prior to her concert, and also going to give her a tour of, some of you might know about these people, the Haymarket Martyrs, who were buried in a cemetery that was next to the community I lived in. I lived in Oak Park, and that was in Forest Park. So that's a little my Holly Near story. And I even got a couple of her songs that I was able to use during my videography days when I was in my 30s. I would do programs for public access. We did 2 of Holly's songs for that she gave me permission. So anyways, I love your presentation, having her, and thank you for that. So what I hope to do today is share some knowledge with you that when I really learned this, I was floored. You know, this whole idea about how important nutrition is to our overall health. You know, and somebody said earlier, you know, I look great, you know, I'm 72. Okay, the dyed hair makes a big difference. I know that. But I also believe my lifestyle really matters, you know, and healthy lifestyle, as you probably know, has many elements. You know, it's exercise. I was at the gym today doing my strength workout. I try to do that twice a week at least. And I'll just tell you, at 72, I'm lifting now a 40-pound barbell. I did it 15 times, and then I think I did another 15 again, you know, and I do some other, I don't go higher than that, and leg weights and all that. So, you know, I'm doing great at 72. And, you know, we also know sleep's important, and stress management, and having purpose in your life. But nutrition, oh my gosh, there is so much about that people don't appreciate. So what I hope to do today, you know, in my presentation, trying to figure out what I'm going to do in this, you know, short time, is try to share with you some of the evidence. There's really a lot of evidence that if you eat what we would call a whole food, plant-based, or vegan diet, that you can really significantly lower disease risk and even reverse some diseases. And so I'll share evidence with you. I'm going to do a couple little videos with you. I want to talk about some of the major diseases that do afflict us, and some quick resources about how plant-based eating makes a difference for those. I'll give you a little overview of, you know, what are the most important things to eat, and I will give you some actual tips from some doctors on how to make this eating plan work for you, in terms of what food should you be eating every day, and in what serving sizes to get this great health. So that's what's coming up. So I think I should start, though, by just kind of letting you know how I got interested in all this, and, you know, why I'm kind of sitting in front of you now. And so back in 2012, when I was 60, I watched a documentary which was called Forks Over Knives. And that was the catalyst for all the desire to learn about how nutrition impacts our health. And in that documentary, I learned that my father's heart disease, which he had for 30 years until he died, first heart attack around 50, then had a couple of bypasses. He had a valve replacement. He died of congestive heart failure. No doctor told him, I know this, what I learned in that documentary, that if people would do a complete lifestyle change for their nutrition from what people normally eat to a whole food, plant-based, low-fat diet, that they could actually halt their heart disease and stop it from progressing. And some people will even, what they say, reverse the plaque in their arteries. It will start diminishing and dwindling away. Nobody told my dad this. I know it. The only thing I know that my mom really got from all those doctors for all those 30 years is don't give Bernie so much red meat. You know, that's what you always hear. Don't eat the red meat. But they didn't talk about the chicken and the fish and the turkey and the processed food and the dairy and all this stuff that has bearing on our diseases. So I learned in that documentary that while my father had heart disease, that there were actually 2 doctors who had studies that were in the medical literature proving this, that if people would make this fundamental diet change, their life could just be transformed in terms of their future health. And I will mention them in a little bit when we start going through my slideshow. I learned, so this was like really impactful to me because, you know, I don't know if any of you had sick parents or you had, you know, a lot of sickness in your own life or, you know, your partners or whatever, but my parents were sick people. Besides the heart disease, my dad had Parkinson. And by the time he died, he actually couldn't swallow anymore. And it was, they were just going to put him like on a liquid diet that would have just, you know, made him nuts. That was going to be his nutrition. It was actually probably good that he died from that heart failure. But my mom, she was always going to doctors. All these things were always bothering her. She had terrible osteoarthritis. But the worst that happened was she had either Alzheimer's or some other major form of dementia. And she literally was in a bed for 15 years, losing her mind. And I watched all that. Okay. And so, you know, going through my parents' diseases and illnesses and the anxiety and the stress and the emotions, and when I learned this knowledge that what we put in our bodies every day has this major impact on that, I'm like, why don't we all know this? And I'm like, okay, so, you know, by that time, I had already gotten my PhD in sociology. I actually went back late in life. I didn't go back for that until I was 43 to get the master's and the PhD in sociology. And so, you know, I like to learn, I like to research. And so I said to myself, you know what? This is wrong that your average person doesn't know this knowledge. So guess what? I'm going to learn it and then I'm going to teach it. And that's why I'm here in front of you today. And so what I learned since I was 60, like I said, I'm 72 now, is that it's not just heart disease. It impacts all kinds of diseases we have, you know, and again, most people don't know. And our food culture, you know, in the restaurants or what's in our grocery stores, you know, is not healthy in general. You know, all these food companies that make products for us, even all these vegan products that are out there now, most of them are not really healthy. There are some that are okay, but a lot still aren't healthy. And, you know, so we're at the mercy of, you know, all these people who make these products for us, and then they give us the advertising and we think everything's, you know, hunky-dory, and we eat and then we get sick, you know. And I don't even know, you know, the person you talked about who collapsed, you know, maybe, you know, if she had, I don't know what her diet is, but, you know, if she wasn't on this diet, if she had, maybe that wouldn't have happened to her, who knows. But so this is the kind of stuff I'm going to share with you today. So let me just get a drink of water. So I think that's like the basic. Now, I guess I should share this with you too. So that was the catalyst for me wanting to learn and to share, okay? And so since that time, I've immersed myself. There's actually a very significant community of people, doctors, dietitians, other health professionals, researchers who advocate this way of eating if you want optimal health. And so they have books, they have lectures, they have websites, they're all on YouTube. They go to conferences. And so I've been like listening to these people for the last 12 years. And so that's the knowledge I'm going to share with you. And my goal is, because there's this whole community, and there are some nuances between different doctors or people who advocate this way of eating, like prioritize this a little more or that. But there's a general thrust of things, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. I like to look for the consensus of all the different people, rather than like share an outlier thing with you. So that is where all my knowledge is coming from. And so my own dietary pattern, it was a little easier for me to get into this than most, because when I was 21, I actually became a vegetarian. So as a child, to be honest, I just didn't want to eat animals. But that's what my mom cooked. So, that's what I did. But I met somebody when I was 21 as I was waitressing in a restaurant. She was a few years older than me, the manager. She told me that you could exist without eating animals. And so that's what I did. And so from 21 to 60, I was a vegetarian, which simply means I did not eat any of the bodies of animals, but I did eat dairy, so milk products or eggs. I was never a big egg fan, but so I had more milk in the terms of yogurt. I never drank milk. I actually didn't like that as a kid either. And then when I watched that Forks Over Knives documentary, the very next day, I gave up the dairy and eggs. And that had nothing to do with my animal sense of compassion. It was strictly because of what I learned in that documentary about how animal protein can affect us. And I will talk about that in a little bit. So that was my story. So 60 years old, I gave up everything and I became fully vegan. Now, vegan, we don't often like to talk about vegan just as a diet, because what vegan really means is you're excluding animal foods. But it doesn't say in itself that you're going to eat healthy food. So like you could eat Oreos, potato chips, soda pop all day long. They're all vegan and they're going to not give you good health. So if I use the word vegan, I really need to put in front of it whole food, because that is really what the dietary plan is. We're eating plants very close to how they've been harvested in nature. And we're not going to adulterate them with, all these bad ingredients that create bad health, which is typically a lot of sugar, salt, and a lot of unhealthy fat, or just fat in general that makes people fat. And so that's what a whole food means, is that we're going to keep food very simple, for the most part. But it's delicious. And I'm going to be showing you some pictures of the foods we eat in my house, because you might have some conceptions like, it's just kale, it's just salad, I can't live like that. It's so much more than that. I just love to eat, and there's, like I said, there's a big community now. I mean, it's not the majority of life, but there are a lot of more people who are beginning to eat a whole food, plant-based or vegan diet, or they're not 100%. They're just what they call plant forward. They're putting in much more of these whole plant foods in their diet, trying to get these benefits. Okay. So with that, I'm going to bring up my slideshow and we're going to start. And I do appreciate if you kind of wait for your questions for later, just so I don't get too deviated and off on tangents. There's so much I could share with you. I'm actually starting a course tomorrow on Zoom with people in Charlottesville, Virginia. It's actually a 9-week course on the same topic, 2 hours at a time. That's how much knowledge I could share with you about how all this works, the science behind it, all the different diseases, but, I'm going to obviously do something much smaller for you guys here today. But I just want to say this. If for some reason you just have such a burning question, you can't even stand the idea of me continuing without knowing something based on what I'm sharing, then let somebody know, or put something in the chat like, I need to ask this now. But if you can wait, we'll have our Q&A later. Okay. All right. So let me get my slideshow up. And we want to start from the first slide. Just want to get these controls out of my face. All right. So eat your veggies. Let's learn why eating plants prepared in healthy ways significantly lowers your risk for chronic disease. And you know, eating this way really isn't hard. It's just different. And once you get the hang of it and feel the benefits, you know, most people are really happy they went on the plant-based journey. So what I want to start with is actually a little brief video. It's only 5 minutes and 48 seconds. And it's with a surgeon, Dr. Ermini Van Dyken, who's in Hawaii. She has a YouTube channel with her husband, which I'll show you after the video in case you say, oh, she sounds cool. I'd like to look up her video channel, YouTube channel, and learn more. But she kind of gives the general basics about what is a whole food plant-based lifestyle and why should you even consider, you know, transitioning to that. So let's just watch that now. And I'm just going to take my video off the screen so you don't have to look at me while this is going on. Okay. That'll be right there. Apparently they put the ads on now and then
Aloha, I'm Ermini Van Dyken from Out of the Doldrums. I'm a surgeon, but I also happen to be board certified in lifestyle medicine. In addition to surgery, health and illness prevention is a passion of mine. Along those lines, this video will examine the relationship that food has on our overall health and wellness. Staying healthy is more like running a marathon. It's not a sprint. Especially these days, it's of paramount importance that we remain as fit and healthy as possible. Having a healthy lifestyle gives us the best chance of fighting and recovering from SARS-CoV-2 should we become infected. So let's use this time to work on our nutrition and to get our bodies in the best shape we possibly can. In addition to other wellness habits like exercise, sleep, mindfulness, and healthy relationships, I'm a huge fan of fiber and vegetables. I'm also a huge fan of a whole food plant-based lifestyle. Why? Well, because I've seen drastic improvements that this lifestyle has made on myself, my loved ones, my colleagues, and my patients. In addition to this, there's an abundance of research supporting the health benefits associated with eating this way. Let's define a whole food plant-based lifestyle. While not necessarily a vegan diet, it's an eating pattern that emphasizes the consumption of vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, and legumes. These plants have phytonutrients, they have vitamins and minerals, and it makes them nutrient dense. Let's talk about some of the evidence behind adopting a whole food plant-based lifestyle. Eating tons of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains has been strongly associated with lower rates of obesity. According to this study, vegans had a lower rate of obesity than others, with an average BMI of 23. It's been associated with prevention and in some cases even reversal of heart disease. With heart disease being the #1 killer of Americans, there's multiple studies that demonstrate slowing down and even reversal of atherosclerosis, as well as reversal of hypertension and lowering of cholesterol. It's been associated with prevention, management, and in some cases reversal of type 2 diabetes. The Diabetes Prevention Project demonstrated that lifestyle changes were more effective than metformin in preventing the incidence of type 2 diabetes. Here's another example of a randomized clinical trial which demonstrated that a whole food plant-based diet was effective at lowering hemoglobin A1C in individuals with diabetes. It's been associated with lower risk of developing some types of cancers like prostate, breast, and colorectal cancer. Epidemiological studies consistently demonstrate an inverse correlation between vegetable, fruit, and grain intake and cancer rates. Honestly, no matter how we currently eat, if we can incorporate more vegetables, more whole grains and fruits into our meals, the better off we'll be. And it doesn't have to be an all or nothing approach. Small changes go a long way. Changes like trying out meatless Mondays or adding even just one additional vegetable to every meal. When we eat a whole food plant-based diet, our fiber intake increases. Did you know we're a fiber deficient nation? Only 3% of Americans get enough fiber in their diet. 3%. Low fiber intake puts us at a higher risk of developing certain chronic diseases. Honestly, fiber is a superfood in and of itself. It's essential for our health. High fiber diets have been associated with lower rates of colon cancer, diverticulitis, and even heart disease. Lastly, eating tons of fiber ensures a healthy gut microbiome. Eating plant-based is a powerful way to achieve better health. We all eat a set amount of food every day. We all make a choice of what we put in our mouth, and we can either eat healthy food or we can eat junky food, or we can eat anywhere within that spectrum. Choosing to eat healthy food will flood our bodies with nutrients, with health-promoting fiber, with phytochemicals, and with antioxidants, thereby strengthening our immune system. Eating the junky food will do the exact opposite, setting us up for disease. If we were to set a goal together, I would suggest the goal of working towards becoming at least 90% plant-based. Why 90%? Well, it's what we see in the blue zones populations, the areas of the world that have the highest number per capita of centenarians, or people that live to 100. Research has shown that individuals that live in the blue zones are on average 90% plant-based, and it's theorized that their diet, in conjunction with other factors like social connectivity, is the reason they live so long. Also, 90% instead of 100% leaves room for a little leniency. Hopefully it takes the pressure off being perfect. If you prioritize the 90%, then you get 10% leeway or allowance to do whatever you want with. As your eating improves though, you may find that your 10% allowance gets healthier and healthier. If you're concerned about getting enough nutrition on a whole food plant-based diet, fear not. A 2014 study compared the overall nutritional value of multiple different diets and found the plant-based diet to be the most nutritionally complete, while the omnivorous diet received the lowest score. To eat the healthiest plant-based diet, make sure to find variety in what you are eating. Diversity is key. Eat multiple different types of meals made with many diverse plant foods. Avoid processed and packaged foods, no matter if they're plant-based or not. And lastly, be sure to supplement with B12. If you have any questions on this, feel free to check out these additional websites. They are chock full of information, practical tips, recipes, and menu plans. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please put them down in the comments below. We love hearing from you, so give us some comments, give us some suggestions what you want to learn more about in future videos. If you like this video, guys, give it a thumbs up. If you want to show us some real support, subscribe. Take care, everybody. Stay healthy, stay well, and aloha.
All right, let me try to get out of this. This is the one thing that always seems hard for me when I want to advance to the next slide. Okay, there's good. That's there. Get my video back. All righty. So I hope you enjoyed that little introduction. And this is Dr. Van Dyken's YouTube channel. If you want to jot that down, if you'd like to go see some of the other, and most of her videos are also like very brief, like this one, but you know, with a lot of great points. So as I continue, you'll hear some repetition of some of the points that she made, but with, you know, more detail. Okay, so I want to just start also with kind of the main points. You know, these are the reasons why a whole food, plant-based or vegan diet, whichever term you want to use, works. High fiber, which Dr. Ermini mentioned. If I had time, I would do a whole section just on how fiber is so important for our health. I learned things that I didn't ever know, but here's one thing. If you love to read and learn, check out a book called Fiber Fueled. Fiber Fuel. That was the Bible for me on learning about why fiber is so critical and why eating plant-based makes so much sense. And that author was a doctor, a gastroenterologist named Dr. Will Bolshewitz. Okay, so outside of a high fiber, when we eat plants, we're eating low saturated and trans fats, and plants have no cholesterol. So I'm sure you've heard, you know, about heart disease being very much impacted by these types of fats and the cholesterol. We also, because we're eating whole food, not vegan junk food, we avoid or keep to a minimum oils, plant butters, which is basically oil kind of condensed, added sugars, and too much salt. So we don't want to like throw all that on our food. And that's the problem with restaurants. When you go to restaurants, they throw all that on because we know it tastes good, right? And everybody wants to then eat that. It's a highly anti-inflammatory dietary pattern. And you might know that so much disease is promoted by chronic inflammation in our bodies. And so when we eat plants versus animal and processed foods, we just don't get that chronic inflammation that can then, start going into these disease patterns that cause us to suffer. Most plants are low in calorie density, enabling us to maintain a healthy weight. And Dr. Van Dyken mentioned that about the studies that show people who are eating whole food plant-based, we have lower BMIs, we just don't have the weight on because plants are low in calories if you don't throw in those other ingredients that I just mentioned, particularly the added sugars and the fats. We want fat, but we want healthy fats, but we also don't want too much fat that we're going to gain weight that isn't healthy for us. So I'm not talking about eliminating all fat, I'm talking about eating healthy fat to the limit that we can have a good body weight for health. And most importantly, instead of just worrying about protein, fat, and carbohydrates, the macronutrients, we flood our body with micronutrients, healthy phytochemicals. That just means plant chemicals. And all the wonderful micronutrients are vitamins and minerals, and there's all these other words, antioxidants, flavonols, polyphenols, all these terms from plants that just talk about what they give us that can make us really healthy. So, what do we eat on a plant-based diet? I said earlier, maybe you have a conception that it's just not an exciting way to eat. Well, I hope some of the pictures that I show you now will change your mind if you kind of thought that. These are some of the foods that we eat in our house. I actually took these pictures quite a long time ago. I could show you so many more things we eat. But mostly the food I'm showing you is what we will eat like for our second meal of the day. Mostly for breakfast, it's always oatmeal with a lot of fruit. And then I often have some beans and greens after that. Then I have kind of a main dish for my lunch. And my dinner is typically a salad or yogurt with fruit. So my heavier meals are earlier in the day because research shows that's what's best for us, and lighter towards the last meal. This is absolutely one of my most favorite things to eat. And I did mention early on that I have a YouTube channel with my husband called Happy Vegan Couple. And we started that a lot of years ago, really just to show people how to cook and prepare healthy, whole food, plant-based food. Because Georgie is an excellent cook, and he's really the cook in our house. All these pictures, most of them are food that he makes for us. And this is actually one of my favorite dishes. They have spring rolls with a yummy peanut butter dipping sauce. And so you can go to our YouTube channel and actually find a cooking video of this dish. And Georgie shows you how to make it from, a step by step. They're not real quick videos because we want to work and show people who really don't know how to cook and they don't have confidence in cooking. So we want to help them with that. And so that's what mostly our YouTube channel is for. There are some other things on there, but its main purpose was to create the cooking videos. How about lasagna? We just leave the meat out. We put beans in there, or you can put lentils in there, and we don't use dairy cheese, but that is actually made out of nuts. That's what you see there. It's like a mozzarella that was made out of, I think, raw cashews and a couple different kind of ingredients. We also use raw cashews for something we call cashew cheese spread that I cannot live without. That recipe is on my YouTube channel as well. I love to eat stir fries. We eat a lot of soy in our house because it's very healthy and wonderful protein. And you just want to mix it with veggies and some grain, whole grain. And you got a wonderful, healthy meal for you right there. And these things don't take long to make, and there are also tips to make these lifestyles easier too. This is just another stir fry with a different soy product, tempeh, which is a whole food soy product. And kind of a little nutty flavor, a lot of people think, and again, more veggies with a little soy sauce flavoring. Chickpea salad, instead of tuna salad, we use chickpeas. We have We make our own mayonnaise out of tofu and some other ingredients. We have this on our YouTube channel as well. We have sampled this to a lot of people because we sometimes do demos, live demos. And we brought this on many of occasions over the years. People love this recipe. So much, just so healthy. Like I said, I start every day with oatmeal. Now I don't use this oatmeal anymore. This is rolled oats. I'm now at another one, which I'll talk about a little later. It's called oat groats. It's just got more protein and fiber than rolled oats. It's healthier for me. And I throw in like maybe a cup and a half of fruit, like a half a cup of blueberries, half a cup of strawberries, some mango, some dark cherries, a few walnuts. I throw flaxseed in there, and it's like, wow, what a wonderful breakfast. I love that. And you know what? I buy frozen fruit because it's more affordable for me. Like I go to Costco and I buy these big bags of organic berries and mango and cherries. And so it's so easy to like throw that in the oatmeal. You can make pancakes, out of oatmeal as well, or whole wheat. Love to eat tacos. You could, make many varieties of tacos. We're always eating potatoes with our tacos. We love to eat potatoes. Almost every day we eat potatoes in our house, typically Yukon Gold. We throw in the beans and the veggies, and we flavor it with a little bit of this cashew cheese spread. Oh my God, it's so yummy. Green smoothies, they're so healthy. You throw in all the greens, a little bit of fruit to flavor. You can put in your omega-3s like flaxseed or chia. Soy curls is an interesting product. It's this dehydrated stuff in a plastic bag that doesn't look good at all. But you take it home and you hydrate it in water, whatever serving you want for the dish you made. And it comes to be this really chewy, yummy stuff. And a lot of people think it tastes like chicken. Okay, I haven't had chicken, in so long I wouldn't be able to tell you. But it's a really delicious way to eat soy foods, great fiber, great protein, flavorful. You can make stews in it. This is like, a soup that we made. Mexican bowl, this is just an example. It's so easy to do this. You just put some, greens in there and your beans, potatoes, some veggies, and that's that cashew cheese spread again that I was talking about. Tofu scramble, instead of eating eggs, go ahead and make some tofu scramble. You can either cube them like that, or if you have tofu, you can just kind of scrunch it up, so you make like more little pieces, like scrambled egg kind of thing. And, you can serve it with potatoes. This time, Georgie made hash browns, and we have beans on the side. Pizza, the way we make pizza is the difference is we'll never use a white flour crust because we know that eating refined grains like white flour isn't healthy for us. So we're going to use 100% whole wheat flour. There's people like, oh, that's tough. You know what? It's not that tough. Your taste buds will get used to these little different flavors, these little different nuances. And if you hold in your head the fact that this is going to offer you so much more health, and you want that for yourself, you'll be happy to enjoy it. And so we just throw a lot of veggies on, in some kind of pizza sauce. And then we have like our cashew cheese spread on there, or there's different other ways you could make, these kind of cheeses. Just a hint though, in the grocery stores, they sell a lot of vegan cheeses now, but many of them are very unhealthy. They're really not any better in some ways than dairy cheese because they're still high in saturated fat because they're using coconut oil a lot of times as to make that cheese. And coconut oil is extremely saturated, and you shouldn't be putting that in your body, because you're just going to load up plaque in your arteries if you did that a lot. So, but there are ways of using nuts and seeds to make these cheesy flavors. And, that's how we use the cashew cheese. I don't eat very many sweet stuff like I used to, but, occasionally I'll make some cookies, that are healthy. This was one of them. I believe this is on our YouTube channel. And this is on our YouTube channel too. Now, this is like the most decadent, yummy dessert. Like if we're going to have an occasion, we've hosted potlucks in our house, plant-based potlucks, and Georgie will make this. This is on our YouTube channel as well. It's not baked. It's the crust is mostly dates and nuts. And then the inside has blueberries, I think some cashews. And then we do use a coconut product called coconut manna. But that's not like the oil, because this is like the inside of the coconut pureed up. And so it's not like just fat, like coconut oil is. So yeah, there's still going to be saturated fat in any of those coconut products, but it's a much healthier option than the oil, and you're not using that much of it for the whole pie. Anyway, this is really delicious if you guys really want to try something, yummy and share it with friends. So, as you can see, there's an abundance of wonderful, healthy food to enjoy when eating a whole food plant-based diet. So I hope you'll begin to incorporate more of these kinds of dishes in your life and reap the healthy benefits. So sadly, though, most Americans don't eat anything like the way I eat from the knowledge I've learned. They unfortunately eat unhealthy. And the World Health Organization defines that as a diet based on processed foods with added fat, sugar, and salt, and animal products rich in saturated fats, low in veggies, fruits, legumes, whole grains, nuts, and other fiber foods. And this is just a graphic from several years ago. It's actually worse than this now, but I like the graphic, so I wanted to show it. It basically shows what most Americans eat. They eat blue as processed food. So that's all the stuff in the grocery stores or in all the restaurants and the fast food restaurants that you pick up. I don't mean everything in the grocery store, but a lot of stuff in the grocery store that's not in the produce department, right? But that's in the freezer department or on the shelves. Food that's made in factories that typically have refined grains and lots of sugar, fats, and salt. And you see, they hardly eat veggies. And when they do, which is like the green, look what it says. Half of that is basically, French fries and ketchup. Well, we know French fries aren't healthy for us. And, unfortunately, a lot of ketchups out there have sugar added to it. We buy a non-sugar ketchup in our house because we don't want to have added sugar put in our food from the factories. So this is why Americans aren't healthy. They don't live like Dr. Amini was talking about in the blue zones because they eat unhealthy. So let's talk about some of the major diseases now that do afflict Americans. And I'm going to share you some quick resources that if you're interested, you can look at, which will tell you how if you change your diet, you will really lower your risk for these diseases and maybe even be able to reverse some of them, depending on which disease it is. So, of course, heart disease is the leading cause of death among men and women, as they get older. And then a couple of years ago, you can see almost 800,000 people died from heart disease. And that's the equivalent of 1 in every 5 deaths or 1 death every 33 seconds. And what's also very scary about these stats is that half of these deaths that happen every 33 seconds, the people die immediately. That's what sudden cardiac death is. They don't have a chance to go to the hospital and get these interventions that will keep them alive longer, but you'll have to go through all those procedures. And then half of those people who die right away, they didn't even know they had heart disease because they didn't have symptoms. They didn't have the angina yet, right? Or the maybe out of breath kind of stuff. So they didn't even know. But most Americans have some form of heart disease because from the beginning of their childhood, they're eating the foods their parents give them. Parents think they're feeding them healthy, but sadly, we know that most of them aren't because they're eating processed foods and all these animal foods with these compounds that don't cause health. So heart disease is really primarily a lifestyle disease, and diet is key. Now, when Dr. Amini Van Dyken was talking about the heart disease literature, and I referenced it in my introduction, these are the 2 doctors that were in the medical literature while my father was having his heart disease get worse and worse as each decade went on. Drs. Dean Ornish, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, they both did studies where they had people eat a whole food, plant-based, low-fat diet, and they found that that is the key to preventing, halting, and reversing coronary artery disease. And like I said, these were published in medical journals. Do doctors commonly tell this to people? I don't think so. My parents, and you know why they don't? Because doctors, sadly, they do not learn nutrition in medical school. They hardly have any training in this. So we go to the doctors and they can't advise us. That's another reason why I wanted to learn this and share this, because I know it's lacking for when we have, and then they don't have time, right? The insurance companies make them, have a quick visits now. They have to rush through it. Do you think they really have time to share what I'm sharing with you? No. So let me tell you what's on this slide for you. The top part is Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn with the book that he wrote after he did his study with a bunch of patients who were so sick with heart disease that they were sent home to die from their cardiologist. Like, we can't do anything else for you. We've done everything. And he got these people and put them on a very low-fat diet, because that's what he believed was needed. It was no more than 10% fat. It was all plants, no oils. He didn't even have them eat avocados or nuts and seeds, because he was just worried about the overall fat. And he kept these people alive, for some of them for decades, when they were being sent home to die from their cardiologists. So it's a very interesting book. And his wife and daughter have a YouTube channel where they share some of the recipes, that have been created by them, to help people reverse heart disease. And they're kind of funny. It's very humorous. So that's their YouTube channel, should you want to go look that up. The bottom is Dr. Dean Ornish. His study was a slightly different. He did allow a little tiny bit of low-fat dairy in his diet. But other than that, it was very close to Dr. Esselstyn. And Medicare actually pays people who have had heart attacks and need rehab to go to an Ornish Medicare rehab program. That's how much they believe in the idea of eating a plant-based or plant-forward diet. And the book on the left, it was the latest book that Dr. Dean Ornish did a couple of years ago. He's had a couple books out called Undo It. And he talks about like the whole system of creating health. So it's more than nutrition, but nutrition is key in it. But then it's all the other lifestyle principles, exercise, sleep, so on as well. And you can see his website if you want to look that up. So I want to share with you what I feel is such a impactful graphic that comes from the American College of Cardiology. Now, you might not know who they are. They are a really important group, because they're the people who decide what cardiologists should do to treat you with heart disease. So that friend of yours who has got the pacemaker, it's going to be the College of Cardiology who's going to do all the research, to find out what the studies show. Will the pacemakers work? Are they safe? Should we recommend them? And they write the guidelines, for the cardiologists. So they also write guidelines about nutrition. And a few years ago in their medical journal, the Journal of American College of Cardiology, they actually had this graphic in there as they wanted to tell people the evidence about how certain foods impact our health. So, you can just see, I already mentioned about coconut oil. This is the column that they say, we have evidence of harm and you should either limit or avoid. I don't know about you, but when I hear harm, I kind of want to just avoid rather than limit, Coconut and palm oil, because of that saturated fat. And when we eat saturated fat, it actually raises the cholesterol in our body. Eggs, of course, the yolk have a big bunch of cholesterol in there. And now, you might hear all the time that eggs are a wonderful protein and they're a wonderful, they've got great, vitamins or minerals or whatever in there, and they're great to eat. But this is the American College of Cardiology telling you that they will raise your cholesterol, and they know that you don't want to have high cholesterol, particularly LDL cholesterol. So you might want to consider not eating that. Juicing is a problem because you take out the fiber. The Southern diet with all the added fats and oils, fried foods, you can see not healthy. Just because of time, I'm just going to run over here to show you the benefit. Olive oil is recommended over many other oils strictly because it's lower in saturated fat. So whether it's olive oil or avocado oil or organic canola oil. These are lower saturated fat oils, and they're going to be much healthier if you feel you need to use them than butter, lard, you know, those kinds of things. Ghee, you know, if you were eating Indian food. But it's also a great thing not to have a lot of oil, because oil is fattening and there's really not much in it except for maybe a few polyphenols, and you gain weight from it. Berries are very healthy. Nuts are good for us. Green leafy veggies. And I just want to really show you this, because so many people think that for protein, they really need to eat animals because that's the quality protein. Look what the American College of Cardiology is telling you. Plant-based proteins are going to be so much better for your heart than eating from an animal. And they don't take fish out of there, right? I mean, whether it's cow, chickens, turkey, fish, those are all animal proteins. Now we know fish has these omega-3 fatty acids, which kind of is why some people tout fish, but again, it's animal protein. And we can still get those omega-3s in a different way. We don't even need them from the fish. And you know, fish also are being raised in water systems that are highly polluted. And guess where those pollutants land up in the fish? In the fat. So when you're eating the salmon or if you've done fish oil supplements, you know, you're getting possibly these toxic industrial chemicals in your body because they accumulate in the fat of the fish. So here's another big disease, you know, the second one really that afflicts so many people, cancer. 2024, around 2 billion Americans will be diagnosed. Around 612,000 will die. These are the leading types: breast, prostate, lung, bronchus, colon, and rectum. And as Dr. Amini Van Dyken said in her little brief video, diet is related to cancer, as well as not smoking. That's a different topic, but diet is so important. Now, when I decided after watching that documentary, Forks Over Knives, for the very next day to give up my dairy, my milk products, or eggs, it was really because of this man. It was what I learned in this movie. Dr. T. Colin Campbell is not a medical doctor. He's a scientist, and he did all these research studies on nutrition, some in the lab, and then he did this big study with some scientists in China. And he created this book called The China Study, and then somebody in his family made the China Study cookbook. So let's just see what this says so you can just know a little bit more. More than 30 years ago, nutrition researcher T. Colin Campbell and his team at Cornell, in partnership with teams in China and England, embarked upon the China Study, the most comprehensive study ever undertaken of the relationship between diet and the risk of developing disease. What they found, when combined with findings in Colin's laboratory, opened their eyes to the dangers of a diet high in animal protein and the unparalleled health benefits of a whole food, plant-based diet. So I have a slide that I'm just going to show you next that details some of the major differences that Campbell and his team found between what people ate in China, and they went to different rural and city, you know, different geographic regions to see what, you know, people were doing. So it wasn't just one place, but compared, you know, in general, China to America. And you can actually see in this, again, these points about why the Chinese had much less disease, because that was what was the main point of the China study. When they looked at all the kind of health conditions and diseases of the Chinese to the Americans, they found that the Chinese just didn't suffer like Americans. And so the diet was really different in some major respects. As you know, you're looking at this, you're seeing. So let's look at a couple of these. In China, they ate less protein than in America. In this country, people like have this idea they have to be protein, 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 protein in order to be okay. But actually you can overload on protein and it's not good, you know, for your body, for your kidneys and other bodily systems to have too much. And so they were eating less. But look at this. animal protein compared to the two countries. Not even 1% in China, and here we are in America, 10 or 11. So right there, you have one of the major findings that if you have a diet with very low animal protein or none, you are going to have less cancer and other diseases because animal protein influences that. Look at the fiber. Dr. Emini Van Dyken talked about that at the end of her video, how important fiber is, right? They were eating, because they were eating mostly a plant-based diet in China. I mean, that was the whole point, mostly plants. They got, in general, 33 grams of fiber a day, which is about what's recommended mostly for good bowel movements. But we really actually want to be way beyond that if you want health. And that's, again, that's the whole fiber discussion, you know, that we don't have time to get into today. But most Americans are not even anywhere near this, as Dr. Emini said. They're all deficient. So here, you know, 12 grams is like more common. So those are some of the major reasons, you know, why the diet influences the cancer rates. So just summation of that, no animal protein from eggs, dairy, and meat means your body will have lower levels of this compound. And this is the one that we care about when we're talking about this particular issue, IGF-1, which stands for insulin-like growth factor. It's a hormone that grows cells in your body. But what our doctors tell us is at a certain point, we just don't want to have high levels of this in their body. You know, we're adults, we're grown. You know, we want cell turnover. Of course, that always happens, but we just don't want unregulated growth, because a lot of that growth takes these cells that are called unstable, like free radicals is a name for a lot of them, and they can turn into cancer. And so that's what the research finds. Higher IGF-1 from the animal protein makes more of these cells grow and can promote cancer, and plants don't do that. They just don't influence IGF-1 like animal protein does. I do hear somebody's microphone is open. If you might just check to mute your mic, because I'm just hearing a little extra noise, please. So this is another quick resource I want to share with you. I have learned so much about this nutrition and health from this guy on the bottom there, Dr. Michael Greger. He is a medical doctor, but he's not practicing. He spends his time reading medical journals on nutrition and then creating videos, short little videos, 5 to 7 minutes typically, on a particular topic that summarizes the research on that topic, like maybe about saturated fat and heart disease, right? Something like that. I mean, there's so many of them. And then he sends that out to all of the people who sign up at nutritionfacts.org with their email. It's totally free. So it's a video or a blog piece, and you learn so much from this guy. So I would encourage you, if you might be interested, to go to that website, put your email in, and get on the list. Now, his first book was actually the How Not to Die. And I have this book, and it's very thick. And in it, it's like the first half of it are all these chapters. How not to die from heart disease, how not to die from breast cancer or colon cancer, or, you know, high blood pressure, or all these different diseases. So you could also go to that resource to learn more about cancer and diet, or you could actually go to nutritionfacts.org, and in there find the topical section you're interested in, you know, and start learning and reading, and you'll learn more about all these issues. So this is a third disease I want to talk about, which is exploding actually around the world and here, type 2 diabetes, which is another lifestyle disease. 1 in 10 Americans have it. Most of them are type 2, not type 1. 1 in 3 adults have pre-diabetes, or they're actually on that road, and most of them don't even know they have it, according to what I've read in the data. And look at this statistics. When you have type 2, adults 50 or plus, you will die 4 to 6 years earlier than people who did not have the diabetes, you know? And so, you know, this is a very dangerous disease. You develop disability 6 to 7 years earlier. And what's crazy is that this is really a lifestyle disease, and most people don't eat the right diet to reverse their diabetes. So a whole food plant-based diet has been found in research to halt and often reverse type 2, but most diabetics don't eat this way. They eat that old diabetic diet where they're counting their carbs, they don't eat carbs, you know, and instead what they're not doing is they're not dealing with the core cause of their type 2, which is called insulin resistance. And what we have learned is that what causes insulin resistance is people eating too much saturated fat or trans fats. And these fats start accumulating on what we call insulin receptors in our cells. And it does not allow insulin to do its job. And the job of insulin is to do this. If I eat, let's say, some whole wheat bread, okay, goes into my body, starts digesting, that's going to turn into glucose. That is what my body wants to power me up. It wants glucose coming from complex carbohydrates. Not refined, not white flour, but, you know, complex, meaning whole grains. And when you eat that way, you don't start putting all that saturated fat on your insulin receptors. And so I am what's called insulin sensitive. I don't have diabetes, but if somebody has type 2, their insulin resistance means insulin cannot take the glucose into your cells. That's its job. Once your body makes glucose, insulin is supposed to take it to your cell, but it can't get in the cell because the cell is blocked by fat. So what do most diabetics do? They don't want to change their diet. They want to keep eating their fat because they like their meat, right? And all that stuff. And so what they do instead is they just don't eat carbs. So they don't have blood sugar rising, you know, in their blood because they basically eat fat and protein from animals rather than carbs. So all they're doing is managing their blood sugar in the moment, but they're not dealing with the root cause of the disease, which is insulin resistance. And you know what? Most people are not perfect in managing their blood sugar for years and years and years. So diabetes keeps marching on. And that's why you see in the previous slide, you die earlier and you develop disability earlier. Even though you're taking all those drugs that they give you, maybe you have to take insulin as well because your pancreas doesn't work anymore to produce that. So I really wanted to go into this because so many people don't know this. And if you know people with type 2, you could share these resources with them. These are some of the books that have come out. I mean, 2006, Dr. Neil Barnard, he's one of our most wonderful plant-based doctors, runs an organization called Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, PCRM.org. Then Dr. Joel Fuhrman, he's another very popular whole food plant-based doctor. He calls his way of eating the nutritarian diet. But again, it's whole food plant-based. He wrote a book about, you know, ending diabetes, 2012. And then a few years ago, this is the newest one. These two guys have a whole program that they've created. Actually, they both have type 1. But Cyrus, the top name, he went and did a PhD on diabetes, and he learned all about type 2 and that there had been actually information in the medical literature decades ago showing that if people would stop eating all that saturated fat, blocking their insulin receptors, they don't have to have type 2. Anyway, so they have a program, they have a website. That's a really comprehensive book. It's very thick. It also includes in it like intermittent fasting and some other lifestyle stuff as well. But these are resources you can use if you want to help somebody. So I told you my mom laid in a bed for 15 years, losing her mind. Pretty horrible. And I tell me, I don't want to make sure that doesn't happen to me. And you know what? At 72, I don't have any of my parents' diseases. So many people think everything's genetics. Far from the truth. You know, so much of it is environmental lifestyle. So Alzheimer's, an estimated almost 7 million Americans age 65 and older are living with it now. 73% are age 75 or older. 1 in 9 age 65 and older has it. And a lot of them are women. They say mainly because they live longer. So it affects them more. Now, this is interesting. Dr. Dean Ornish, who I showed you a picture of in the heart disease slide, he's also doing studies on Alzheimer's. And you might have just recently heard some headlines. So he had a study that was recently published in the summer, and I'm just going to share a little bit about with you. This is the medical literature, Effects of Intensive Lifestyle Changes on the Progression of Mild Cognitive Impairment or Early Dementia due to Alzheimer's disease. And it was a randomized controlled trial. So this is what they did. 51 participants with either MCI or early stage dementia were enrolled between 18 and 2022. 26 of the people were assigned to an intervention group, and they had this complete nutritional lifestyle given to them, where they were actually given the food. They were also given certain supplements, and they were also given, learnings about all this stuff. Then there was 25 people were in a control group where they didn't get that intervention, okay? And so what happened to these two groups with their mild cognitive impairment or early dementia? Wow. So this is the diet that was given to the intervention. A whole food, minimally processed plant-based, 100% plants. High in complex carbohydrates, so those are the good carbs, and very low in harmful fats, sweeteners, and refined carbs. Okay, I'm not going to go through because we're getting so much time. This is the conclusion. In summary, people with mild cognitive impairment or early dementia, they found comprehensive lifestyle changes may improve cognition and function in several measures after 20 weeks. This was only 20 weeks. What if it was 10 years, 20 years? We start getting older. What if we did this when we were younger and all our adult life we were eating healthy, okay? I mean, you might have kids, you could encourage them to think about all this. So I'm going to show you now a little video clip that actually came from Dr. Greger. He put this together on nutritionfacts.org about some of the people in Dr. Ornish's study and the amazing results they got after, being in this lifestyle intervention and eating completely different than they ever did, and how they benefited. So I'm not actually showing you this part. This was, I guess, the front of the screen, but this is interesting to look at. So one of the women in the study said, for 5 years, she'd been unable to prepare their family business financial reports. But now after the intervention, she's able to do that. A deep sense of identity is returning. It's giving me a new lease on life. And yet it's a familiarity and something I've always prided myself on. I'm coming back like I was prior to the disease being diagnosed. I'm like me again. All right, so I'm going to play this little video for you next of a man and what his life, how it changed after being in Dr. Ornish's study and eating a whole food plant-based diet. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the one. I got to click it here. So raise the audio. Whoops. Why does that happen? I think for some reason it happens when and try one more time. If it doesn't work, hopefully you'll be able to hear it. Oh, no, I don't want it less. Let's see,
Transformation.
Let's see if I do it with my finger. I have a touch screen. I don't know if that'll make it. Oh, now we're all off. Sorry, guys. Okay. Oh, yay. Okay, here we go. Wait, I just want to take my video off or my controls so you don't have to stare at me. All right, now I just lost it. Let's see, where are we? Right here. Not that one. Okay, gonna try this again. Hopefully that's still there. No, it's not. I know, this is so annoying, isn't it?
Transformation Center at Mass General.
Oh my gosh.
Big Pharma.
I know you're going crazy with me. I have to get that louder because I don't think you can see it. You can hear it. I don't know why it's so, oh, there we go. Okay, sorry about all that. Let me get rid of my controls again. Okay, here we go.
2 Alzheimer's drugs have been approved in the last 20 years, one of which has already just been pulled off the market, and the other is minimally effective, extremely expensive, and often has pesky side effects such as brain swelling or bleeding into the brain. In contrast, the intensive lifestyle changes implemented in this study have been shown here to improve cognition.
Okay,
and function.
I'm sorry. For some reason, it's not at the place. This is where I want it to be. I have to start back.
Transformations. One of Dr. Ornish's study participants gave us permission to share his story. Dan Jones is a musician at military events and parades who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease.
What did you notice that you could do now that you couldn't do before? Well, for one thing, I had a set of about 8 tunes that I played in the parade, right? And I could just go straight through them from one into the other. I played for an hour and a half without stopping, I think it was. It was pretty close. They moved darn slow in that parade. I was leaving them behind walking. I kept having to stop and wait for them to catch up.
Was that something different?
Yeah. What was? Well, that I could remember the order, that I could make the transition from tune to tune without messing up and getting confused about which tune I was playing. Those were all problems I had when we were playing at the graduation ceremony. You know, I'd forget which tune was coming next. I'd get worried about it, and I'd start making mistakes. And this just went like clockwork. A lot of that had to do with practice, but the tunes we played before, I played hundreds of times. And I was messing up. And in the parade, I hardly messed up at all.
And you were messing up because you had a hard time remembering.
Because I had a hard time remembering. I'd get confused about different tunes. It was really, it was not a pleasant experience. It was unpleasant enough that, like I said, I went home and I put it down.
And
now, that was one day a couple of weeks ago when I really had the drones in tune. It was in the evening. I was out on the front porch playing, and it was just so beautiful. I played for 2 hours. I just stood there and played.
what are you feeling now?
Joy. Just happy. You know, women always say because they're crying because they're happy. I'm crying because I'm happy. It was so nice to be able to do that.
Did that make you feel better about yourself too?
It did.
In what way?
I just felt like I could do something. Like I had a worth again, so to speak.
Whoops.
Something that.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm monitoring I went out of the room for a moment. Okay, something's not working for you guys. And I didn't know this. It sounds like you weren't able to see that. Or let me, could somebody unmute your mic and tell me if you were seeing that video or hearing it?
We were hearing it, but not seeing it.
Okay, I don't know what happened with the share. Okay, well, I'm going to just get out of this. I'm so sorry about that. I don't know what I did, why you're not seeing that. Okay, let me just get out of it.
But it's okay, though. The content was mostly in the words.
Yeah, right. Okay, let me see.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm going to go back to here for current slide. I'll get this out of here. Okay. Yeah, well, right, exactly. I'll talk about them in a second. But right, you could hear how amazing that was. And this gentleman, you know, and his wife are sitting there talking. But that's what plants can do, you know? I mean, so that should be so inspirational, like hearing that kind of story and hearing about that study. And now I want to just introduce you to 2 up. Like I don't see the slides moving on your end. Now you don't need to see my, okay, so you know what? I'm going to end my share and reshare because something is wrong. You're not seeing what I'm seeing. Oh, I think your screen sharing is paused. I hit something by mistake. Let me stop my share completely and start over with that. Okay, sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, let me try it again. I think I know what I did when I was having all that trouble with the audio. I hit something that I'm not really very familiar with, and that did that. There's always like some technical thing, right? Okay, let me go back to this slide where we are. Okay, now you can see it.
There we go.
I'm crazy. I'm sorry that I walked out of the room for a second. All right, so now you can see. Okay, sorry about that, the technology issue. So these two doctors, Dean and Aisha Sharzai, they're actually from California. They actually were practicing in one of the only blue zones of America, Loma Linda, California. And that's because a whole group of people live there who are Seventh-day Adventists, practice that religion, and their religion tells them eat really healthy, and they do. Even though some of them, what's really interesting, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, those Seventh-day Adventists in California, some of them are fully plant-based, some are vegetarian, some are pescatarians, and some also eat, they're omnivores. And so there's these great studies that you're going to hear about in a little while called the Adventist studies, which really have been following these people. And it shows that those who eat the most plants have the most health. Okay, so anyways, that's where they are. And these two, they're neurologists, both of them, a husband and wife team. And they have been doing major work in the public sphere, telling people about what to do for lifestyle if you want to have the best brain health. So it's just like what, we were doing with Dr. Ornish and listening to that, big portion of it is the whole food plant-based diet. So this is their website. You can go there. I would suggest putting your email in so you can even get like their little brochure, which will give you some of the basics about what they're talking about. And then maybe you're going to want to, read more, but at least that's free and you'll get their emails and you can explore them. So what they advocate is that we should eat certain foods every day, the most highly anti-inflammatory foods. And they tell us what serving sizes we should eat. And this is all based on research. And so this comes out of their second book, which they call, and they actually said they didn't like that title, but the publisher wanted them to use it, the 30-day solution, because of course there's not a solution in 30 days, right? But anyways, this is where a lot of this information is in. And I made a presentation of that recently, which I'll mention in a moment. But the picture here shows you the main 9 food groups that we should eat every day, according to them, because they are the most anti-inflammatory foods, and they will give us the best brain health, which guess what? Is the same thing we need for our heart health as well, because it's all vascular. And so we don't want to be blocking up our vessels and, creating problems in them. And so that's why you don't want inflammation. So these are the foods. And what I did is I made a little chart. Like if somebody wanted to be accountable for what they were eating every day, to follow like this plan, you could make a little chart like this. So they call their foods the Neuro 9. Neuro is an acronym for the major lifestyle program: N, nutrition; E, exercise; U, unwind; stress management; R, restful sleep; and O, optimizing your brain. But these are the nutrition part. So like, for example, they'll say we should eat 3 servings of green leafy veggies a day. And then they tell you what serving is. And then I made a little chart. So like, oh, after the first serving, you could fill it in, you did that. So that's kind of what this is. And if you would like to learn way more about it from me, like I said, I just did a presentation on this that I gave to a couple groups, specifically called Eating for Brain Health. And if you would like to watch it, you could send me an email and I'll send it to you. And then you can enjoy it and hopefully learn from it. So I want to move in and just share, now some more of the evidence. Who says eating this way is truly healthy? I already gave you kind of the end result. These things can help these diseases, right? And you heard from Van Dyken, but there's so much more, that I could share with you about all the groups that want you to start eating way more healthy plants. So first of all, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, which is the group for dietitians, nutritionists, they have a position paper that came out a while ago saying that eating this way is safe for anyone at any age of the life cycle. This is their paper. You can go Google it if you want. And they, and they say, again, they're for everybody, all age, older adult head. That's where a lot of us are, right? But it's a great way to eat for health. Here's the American Heart Association. This is from their website. They show you that if you specifically, eat less meat, you will decrease the risk of all these issues. And they want to promote to you, just like that graphic I showed you from the American College of Cardiology, eat plant protein. So eat like tofu, quinoa. Well, not all of these are a protein, but mostly beans and legumes. So that's your split peas, your lentils, all your beans, your soy products. That's where you get your most protein from in the plant world. The American Cancer Society, what do they say? A healthy eating limits or doesn't include red and processed meats, sugar sweetened beverages, processed foods, refined grains, and on top it shows you all the plants that we should be eating. The diabetes group, even though unfortunately most of the dietitians and doctors do not tell people that they can actually become insulin sensitive again, but there is this knowledge in the journals, but sadly, a lot of doctors don't stay current. And it's very frustrating to know that so many people are just doing the wrong thing. The AMA, that's the American Medical Association. This was passed, 2017 at their biannual conference. I think they meet every couple of years. They want hospitals to start feeding us better, the staff, the patients, the visitors, and they share with you 3 major things that all hospitals should do instead of like having a heart attack. And then the next day when you're ready to eat, they bring you eggs and bacon, right? It's crazy, right? Eggs were on the evidence of harm on the American College of Cardiology, but that's what hospitals give people all the time. Patients are happy, because they love to eat it, but that's what made them sick, right? Amazingly, in New York City now, there's a certain branch of hospitals that the default when you're a patient is to first give you a menu for plant-based eating. That's what they're trying to push. And if a person is like, I don't want that, they'll give them something else. But they're trying to teach people by making it the default meal there. And I just want to show you 2 organizations where you can really learn a lot about everything I'm sharing with you. LifestyleMedicine.org is this great organization all about having a healthy lifestyle. And for diet, it is a whole food plant-based diet. So you can go explore that website and learn so much about what they're doing and what's available to you. And then this other organization was started by a plant-based doctor, plantritionproject.org, plantritionproject.org. And they even have a directory of websites where doctors who promote plant-based eating put their names in there, because a lot of times like people are like, can I find a doctor in my city who supports this way of eating? Sadly, there still aren't enough of them, but like an organization like this is trying to help, make those that are there more known to the public. Okay, so this is my last little video that I'm going to show you today. But I love this woman. This is Brenda Davis. She's actually a dietitian from Canada. And she's been a plant-based, vegan, whole food eater for a very, very long time. And she's written many, many books. Her last book was actually all about plant protein. I think it was called Plant Protein Power or something. It answers all the questions that people who typically eat animals are like, what? How are you going to get enough protein on that plant-based diet? Is that protein really going to be high quality? Those concerns, those concerns are, they're not important because we don't have to worry about those things. We get beautiful plant protein from our plants, And there are no issues as long as you pay attention to the major principles of eating, which you should be doing regardless of what you eat, right? Anyways, right now I'm going to show you this little video, 7 minutes, a little longer than the others. And she's going to tell you about the evidence. And in this study, she's going to talk about those Adventist studies that I mentioned a little while ago, those people in California where they're studying their diets because they're all eating healthier than most Americans. And then she's going to talk to you about a couple other studies in other countries. And the basic thing is, what they find is the people who eat more plants, prepared in healthy ways, have the best health. And again, she might use the word LOV, but so that's just reminding you that's the vegetarian diet. They eat dairy and eggs, but no other animal products. And a vegan is only plants, in case she uses those words. Okay, so let me just get, again, my little video stop for this. And hopefully we won't have any problem with this one. I just need to take this away. Okay, we'll get this on.
And the evidence for plant-based diets continues to grow. So one of sort of I think the most compelling of all of the types of research is when you follow groups of people for many years and look at what they're doing, their lifestyles, their diets, and see who gets what disease. And we actually have been following 3 populations for many years, so 3 cohorts. The first being the Adventist Health Study 2, which is over 96,000 Seventh-day Adventists from North America. This study began in 2002 and is ongoing. The second is Epic Oxford with over 65,000 individuals from the UK. It began in 1993 and is ongoing. And the Tzu Chi Health Study with over 6,000 participants, and these are Buddhists, some who are meat eaters, some who are vegetarians. It began in 2007 and is ongoing. And I want to just mention one thing that's important to know about these 3 cohorts, and that is that people in these cohorts die at about half the rate of the general population. Whether they're meat eaters or vegetarians, they all are health-conscious individuals. And so when we compare the meat eaters with the vegetarians, we're comparing people that exercise the same amount, smoke the same amount, drink the same amount. So it's a very fair comparison. We're controlling for all of these variables. So what are the findings? I'm just going to touch on some of the interesting findings of these various studies. So with cardiovascular disease compared to similar health-conscious non-vegetarians or meat eaters, in Epic Oxford, the vegetarians and vegans had about 32% less heart disease. And in the Adventist Health Study 2, there was 23% lower risk of heart disease among lacto-ovo-vegetarian men and 42% lower risk of heart disease among vegan men, although there were no differences among the women. Hypertension in the Adventist Health Study 2 compared to similar health-conscious non-vegetarians, the risk of hypertension was 55% lower among lacto-ovo-vegetarians and 75% lower among the vegans. And the results of Epic Oxford actually was quite similar. In the Adventist Health Study 2, the rates of diabetes were 38% lower among lacto-ovo-vegetarians and 62% lower among vegans. In the Tzu Chi study, the rates of diabetes were 51% lower among vegetarian or near vegan men compared to the non-vegetarians, and 74 to 75% lower among the women. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, the Tzu Chi, this is a study that just came out in 2018. Compared to similar health-conscious non-vegetarians, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease was 21% lower among the vegetarians. And if you replace soy with meat or fish, the risk increased 12 to 13%. And if you replaced whole grains with refined grains, the risk increased 3 to 12%. Cancer, again, we're comparing to the health-conscious meat eaters. Epic Oxford showed 11% lower risk among lacto-ovo-vegetarians and 19% lower risk among vegans. In the Adventist Health Study, 2 and 8% lower risk among lacto-ovo-vegetarians and a 16% lower risk among vegans. In Suchi, breast cancer compared again to the similar health-conscious non-vegetarians, the risk of breast cancer was 58% lower among the near-vegan participants. And daily soy isoflavone intake was associated with a 63% lower risk. So remember that. We're going to come back to soy a little bit later. Cataracts, Epic Oxford showed a 30% lower risk among lacto-ovo-vegetarians and a 40% lower risk among vegans. Diverticular disease, Epic Oxford again showed a 27% lower risk among lacto-ovo-vegetarians and a 72% lower risk among vegans. Kidney disease in the Adventist Health Study 2, 52% less kidney disease among the vegetarians and vegans. And in Epic Oxford, compared to those with a high meat intake, more than 3.5 ounces a day, the vegetarians and vegans combined had 31% fewer kidney stones. So these are pretty compelling numbers. And what we can deduct from all of that is plant-based diets are highly protective against chronic disease. But not only are they highly protective against chronic disease, they provide a very safe and powerful treatment option, in many cases, reversing chronic diseases. So if we look at treatment outcomes, well, for cardiovascular disease, they are, as far as I know, the only diets that have ever been shown to prove reversal of heart disease. Diabetes, plant-based diets improve insulin resistance, insulin sensitivity. They improve our blood lipids. And in many cases, we do see reversal of diabetes as well. And for cancer, plant-based diets have been shown to favorably alter genetic expression, reduce cancer cell growth, decrease DNA damage, and so improving or reducing risk for cancer. And of course, the side effects with treatment using plant-based diets are all worth having. You tend to increase your life expectancy, you lose weight, you improve your lipids, you improve fasting glucose, you improve expression of genes, you reduce your risk of other chronic diseases, whereas with medications and surgeries, the side effects are not always so positive.
All right, there you have it. Okay, I'm just trying to get my next slide up here. Let's see, that didn't do exactly what I wanted. Okay, here we go. All right. I know our time is, we're getting late, so I'm going to try to go through some of these pretty quick. This is just a quick slide. They actually showed that healthcare workers who were working with COVID patients, they did a study on them, and they found that the healthcare workers who were eating plant-based diets or pescatarian diets had lower the odds of moderate to severe COVID than those who were omnivores. So again, just like all those studies that Brenda just showed you, where the vegans, were doing even better than the vegetarians, of course, better than the omnivores. Same thing even with COVID, your exposure to that. And just one last comment I want to make about Brenda's video with the vegetarian versus vegan. You might be able to see now why I gave up my dairy the day after I watched the documentary Forks Over Knives and learned just what Brenda was talking about. it was like, well, vegans live longer than vegetarians, and I was a vegetarian. So like, all right, let's get rid of that other stuff and try to hope that I will have a better, future of my last chapter of life, hopefully without disease striking me early, and I won't suffer. That was why I did that. This is a study that came out just recently about, they were using identical twins and they gave them 2 different diets. And, it showed that genetics doesn't rule. There's actually was a movie on Netflix that was kind of made about this, but the study, it was in the medical literature, and that's what it was called. So I just want to get to the nitty gritty now before we end, and how you really get started eating this way. And of course, as we've talked, you'll be eating more than kale, but kale's great. So the main thing is to eat a diversity of plant food. You just don't stay with one category. You go all the major plant groups, so you get all the major micronutrients plus macronutrients you need. So for your major protein group is your legumes, beans, lentils, split peas, your soy foods, then non-starchy veggies and fruits. So that's like, your broccoli, your cauliflower, your red pepper, your red cabbage, non-starchy. Starchy is your whole grains, brown rice, barley, farro, quinoa, potatoes, corn, winter squash, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices. That really is that's what I eat all the time. And when you go to the store, and the produce department should be like your main place, you want to choose color, because what color is antioxidants. And those are plant compounds that will help you not have cancer by taking out those free radicals and also tamping down inflammation in your body. So I make sure I flood my body with antioxidants all day long to get those benefits. And some of those benefits are in these foods. This is what Dr. Joel Fuhrman calls G-bombs. Those foods have one of those letters in the acronym, and he says, eat these every day. They're all anti-cancer food. That is what the research shows. And here's just, from, again, our website, you can find a video for tofu scramble, but we can get 4 of the 6 G-bombs just making a tofu scramble, right? I've got my, let's see, here's my soy, and then we have our beans, and we have our mushrooms, and we have green onions. We have onions in here. And then here's my kale. So I've hit, so many of those. If I made a smoothie with blueberries in it, I probably get the last 2 in there. That's just a picture of our video on our Happy Vegan Couple YouTube channel, should you want to watch it. So whole grains, I just wanted to make a few comments about those. Please don't feel afraid of complex carbohydrates. That's truly what your body wants you to eat, besides the protein and some healthy fat. And so these are all the amazing things that happen when, you eat whole grains. All these great things, you reduce mortality, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, respiratory diseases. This is what meta-analysis finds out when they looked at a whole bunch of studies. So this is what we don't want to eat. This is what is not healthy for our body. I know these are the foods that people love, right? But they're not healthy. You won't get optimal health, and you might get disease if this is like a big part of your diet. And a major reason is like when you eat these refined carbs, they have the less fiber and less nutrients, but especially when they're refined carbs, your body digests them quicker than whole grains. And when you have quick digestion, you get a blood sugar spike and then an insulin spike. And that's not what our body wants to do. We don't want spikes. We want little increments of insulin coming out at the right time. We don't want diabetes. We want to be able to take that glucose sugar into our cells. So these are the foods to avoid. This comes from Brenda Davis. This is a great slide, kind of explaining why you don't want to eat refined grains. So just really look at, this is like the whole grain. This is like brown rice or farro, and you've got all the major elements of the whole grain in there, bran, endosperm, stern. And now if you turn the brown rice to white rice, all you really get is the starch, the endosperm. And look what you lose. This is what really impacted me when Brenda taught me this. You're losing so much fiber, vitamins and minerals, phytochemicals. Why would I do that to my body? Nutrition is supposed to help me, and then I'm losing all that. And this is the reason why I don't eat oatmeal anymore in rolled oat form, because this is another Brenda Davis slide. She's wanting to teach people how to pick your grains in what form, because if you go to the grocery store, you see them in many different forms. So I used to eat my rolled oats, like that, I guess would be right here, like rolled whole grains, right? But I learned that if I go up here and I eat the actual whole grain of the oat, which is called oat groats, or the next one down, which is steel cut oats, much easier to find in the grocery stores. That's just got more nutrition, more fiber than the rolled oats, right? Because here's where the rolled oats are, right? And if you just look again at that last slide, you know, we don't want to be losing all this stuff. So the higher you are on this chart, the more you will keep getting those nutrients. I made this chart for my teaching just to show people when they're choosing whole grains, a lot of people just initially go to brown rice. So here's brown rice over here. Fiber, typically 3 or 2 grams or 3 grams of protein. For the same serving size, if you go to any of those other grains, look how much more you can get of fiber and protein for the same serving size. I get this at a grocery store called Natural Grocers. I can't really find it anywhere else, but if you have that by you, you could buy hulled barley. Look how much more fiber and protein it has than the rice. So we, well, of course, we want to keep sugars low. And if you want to have the best way of adding sweetness to your food, I've learned from our doctors that dates are a wonderful way to do that. And what you can do is you can take like some measure dates or another form and soak them with some boiling water for an hour and then blend it in a blender, like you know, in a Vitamix or a powerful blender really work well for these things. And then you'll have like a sweetener in your fridge that's so much more healthy than plain old sugar or maple syrup or agave syrup. And you know why it's so much healthier? Because the dates still have the fiber in it. It hasn't been taken, it hasn't been processed.
Right. Denise, yeah. I gotta interject here. I just want to call attention to our time, and I very much appreciate everything you've done and with your presentation. And I have 100 questions for you, but we don't have time for my 100 questions. So I would like to bring this to a close if we can and open it up for questions at this moment, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, let me just advance real quickly so you can kind of just see quickly, and I won't talk about them. Is that okay? Just a few more things about, you know, how you want to eat healthy. So we'll just go real quickly through this.
But don't be upset if I say we're out of time.
No, I don't have them anymore. And so I'm going to just go past all of this. Yeah, we'll just go past all these. I just want to tell you, I talked about nutritionfacts.org. This is another way to help you decide how to eat every day. Like the Sharzai brain health presentation I showed you in the chart I made, Dr. Greger has another great little thing called the Daily Dozen. You can get that for your phone as an app or on the computer. This is what it is, and it can guide you in eating this way. All right, and I'll end right here. Thank you for letting me do this, and let me stop sharing my screen and we can get to that. Okay.
Great. Well, oh, right, Denise, there you are. Now we've all right. So let's open up to everybody who's been listening and see if they have any questions. But before we get to the questions, I want to know if you've ever seen the play or read the script or the film Little Shop of Horrors.
If I did, I don't recall. I think that was from a long time ago, but I don't recall.
Yeah, well, it's where plants eat people. That's the premise. Feed Me Seymour is a great song from the show, but it's just a parody on what you're discussing, and not that it's important. It's just you evoked that in my mind. So one of the things that, on a more serious note, is that you suggested that fiber is a big deal, and fiber, and in terms of you didn't say it, but in order to have the energy, and then the fiber is important for different reasons. The energy, you suggested B12, that people take B12.
Yeah, so the reason why plant-based eater, well, actually the recommendations are now everybody like either over 50 or 65, regardless of what you eat, everybody should take B12 because even if you're an omnivore, you don't, your body doesn't absorb it. Things happen when we're older, right? So everybody should take it. But if you're younger than that, the reason we take it is because B12 is in soil. So when you're eating animals, they're eating B12 because they're getting it from the dirt that's by their food. It's not sanitized like we sanitize our food. B12 is in bacteria. And B12 is very important for our bodies. So we always, should supplement with that.
So in terms of fiber, all right, so B12 is important because it does give us energy that we might be lacking regardless of what our diet is. But in terms of fiber,
Ken, I just want to interject.
Yeah,
it's
please.
not, I wouldn't say it's about energy. B12 has a lot of bodily processes. I wouldn't put that as energy. Energy is glucose, right? That's when we eat carbohydrates and it turns into glucose. And that's what really gives us energy that insulin works. It brings into our cells.
Good.
So fiber is important for many other important processes. It creates these short chain fatty acids that are just so critical for keeping our microbiome in a healthy place, not to get leaky gut. There's just so much about that.
So in terms of fiber, as we age, we're sold products. And as we're sold products, we get sold fiber products. For example, Metamucil. What do you think about Metamucil and the Xylem? So, how do you say it? Selenium?
So, well, I'm going to tell you what the doctors say, all the doctors that I follow. So fiber is critical, and the main place we want to get it is from our food, a diversity of food. There's actually a research study called the American Gut Project, which showed that people who get their fiber from at least 30 different plants will have the best microbiome, okay? Now, the product you're talking about, or many others, is a supplement, and that can be useful for people. I even take a soluble fiber every day in my glass of water, but not Metamucil or wheat dextrin. I use one called acacia gum fiber. I find that to be very gentle on my system, and it just helps move things along more and stuff like that, even with all the fiber I eat. But the main place of getting fiber is the food, not a powder.
Oh, well, but the powder dissolves into.
No, but what I'm saying is, if you want health, for all the different things that fiber does for your body, it's really getting it from all the different plant foods, because fiber feeds your gut bacteria. And that's why we want to have a diversity of different kinds of fiber, because in your gut, you have all these different kinds of bacteria that are hungry and they want to eat plants. But some bacteria eats broccoli fiber, some eats quinoa fiber, some eat onion fiber, right? That's why you want to have a diversity of plant fiber in your body. The products is just an added supplement, but you should never depend on that to meet your fiber goals.
So in terms of the antibiotics, yogurt promotes itself as probiotic. Is that a good?
Well, what's good in yogurt or fermented food? Like every day I eat a little sauerkraut. I also make my own soy yogurt in a appliance called an Instant Pot, and I have a video on my channel to show you how to do that. You want to eat fermented food because that also helps our microbiome, and you can get that from the plant world with, things like sauerkraut, kimchi, yogurt, kombucha, things like that.
So, in your opinion, who would win in a fight, probiotics or antibiotics? Just a joke. That's a joke. That's just
what we know is that antibiotics destroy our bacteria in our gut. And while a while ago, I don't know, maybe a decade ago or something, the doctors used to tell people, if you take an antibiotic, the whole food plant-based doctors I follow, if you have to take an antibiotic, go buy a probiotic to get your system back working. Now they don't say that. They actually found different research that says that's not always helpful. And so the research is kind of showing that if you're a plant-based eater and you take an antibiotic, just you're just going to eat your regular diet, and because you already eat so much fiber, your bacteria will populate again in your microbiome and you'll be fine.
Oh, good. In terms of weight, bodily weight, and what are they called? BMA? What
BMI.
Yeah, BMI. And describe BMI. Tell us what that is. BMI.
So that's body mass index, and it's basically looking at your height and weight and giving you a number to kind of say, are you in a healthy zone? But you also might know that there's also some issues with the BMI, because there are some people like who are very lean, but they have a big abdomen, and their BMI might not show that because they're still lean. And so doctors are now, there's actually, I've been reading about this, they're actually wanting to do a measurement in the office of the abdomen as even a better marker than the BMI. Because when you carry weight here, that is really, really dangerous, because it's what's called visceral fat and surround your organs. And that's the most inflammatory fat. And you should just know in general, there's so much I could share, we don't have the time. But just being overweight, even like 10 pounds, is not healthy. And this is why. Because the fat cells themselves, the doctors say they're metabolically active, and they churn out compounds that aren't healthy. So for example, with a lot of women, you're overweight, those fat cells churn out estrogen, and certain cancers are promoted by excess estrogen. So that's why, for example, a risk of breast cancer or ovarian cancer is being overweight, because that puts out these chemicals that can promote cancer. So, being at a healthy body weight is one of the best things you can do if you truly want optimal health. And on my YouTube channel, I actually did some interviews with some people who were obese, went on a whole food plant-based diet, lost it all, took it all off, kept it off, and then become the major advocates for this way of eating to help other people. And there's some very interesting interviews you could find on my channel if you would like that.
So in terms of weight, which is more important, what you consume or how much you weigh?
Well, I'm not sure I could choose. I mean, what you consume, every time we put something in our mouth, it has an effect on our health. So, you want to choose foods that will truly nourish you. And if you choose the most nourishing foods, you will be at a healthy weight. Because like I said, plants are low in calorie density. And if you don't throw in the sugars and all those fats, you're not going to add up those calories. And, if you actually saw all the different doctors and dietitians in the whole food plant-based community, they almost all are at a normal body weight, as compared, for example, to someone like Andrew Weil, that if you see him, he has a fairly substantial abdomen going on there, and he is not a plant-based eater. As far as I know, I think he's a pescatarian. But, I couldn't follow him because I'm like, well, you're not even at a healthy weight. Why would I listen to you?
So, all right, that's an interesting thing. You described a healthy weight. How do you determine what a healthy weight is based on size?
Well, I mean, we're going to use the body mass index chart as like a general rule, and that will show you, like, if you're in between, I think 19 and 24, the number for your health and weight, that's considered a healthy weight. Once you get 25, you're overweight. Once you get maybe, I think it's past 30, you're obese. So it gives you, that's what these guidelines are used for. And you could easily tell. And you could tell by looking at yourself in the mirror without your clothes on.
Well, and some of us do that every day, and some of us are reluctant to do that any day. So, all right. So, are there questions? Anybody have a question? If there's a question, please, this is the time, because we're running out of time. If you've got a question for Denise, I'd love to entertain your question. Going on once, twice.
I see David's got his hand up.
Yep. Right.
Good.
Well, I could ask a bunch of questions too, and I've been a vegetarian, ovo-lacto vegetarian for many, many years, and I do have some of the benefits that you have been talking about, although it's also true that peanut butter and chocolate and bourbon are vegetarian. But I noticed that only one of the slides you showed, and I think it was from the doctor's Sherzai, in their example of a good diet, they showed tea, and nobody else talked about any kind of beverage. They didn't talk about coffee or tea, herbal tea versus green tea or other things like that. And I didn't know if that comes into the picture in a big way in terms of what can help, what doesn't help. Is a caffeine tea necessarily worse than an herbal tea? Is coffee bad, etc.? Does that
Yeah,
play
okay, so
into
yeah, I
what
can
you've
share some
studied?
things about that. So like what the Sharzite would say, about tea is that, tea has a lot of plant compounds in it, antioxidants and other things that are healthy for us. And so, we don't want to be drinking beverages with sugar, which is what a lot of people are doing. So, we want to drink water. Tea is mostly water with, some tea leaves in it. Green tea has some really wonderful plant chemicals in there that are extra healthy for us. So if you enjoy green tea, you might want to prioritize that. And there's a particular form, if you buy the powdered matcha green tea, that's actually often gives you a little bit more nutrition than like just a tea bag that I'll get at Trader Joe's, a green tea bag. Coffee, the research on coffee in general is that, as I see it and our doctors talk about it, is fine as long as you're not a person that's going to get overly stimulated in a negative way from the caffeine. So, my major health problem is that I've never been a good sleeper. I've always had some form of insomnia. It's hard for me to sleep. And so I'm never going to have coffee, outside of my very early morning coffee, because I'm not going to put that caffeine in my body. But if you're not worried about that, coffee actually has a lot of protective elements in it as well. So the main problem with beverages is what else you put in it. If you're going to start putting in the sugar, you're going to put in dairy milk, now you're going to start getting, the animal stuff and the saturated fat and, some cholesterol and all that kind of stuff. That's what ruins it.
All right. Oh, okay. Does that answer your question, David?
Yeah. The only other thing was, and you just answered it now, was only on one of the lists did it list fruit juices as being something to be avoided, and I'm assuming that that's processed fruit juices. If you juice your own orange.
Well, here's the reason. It would still be juicing your own orange. Again, the major reason that in general fruit juice is to be avoided is because there's no fiber in it. So even if you do your own orange, if you have a juicer at home, you might be eliminating the fiber. And we don't want to eliminate fiber. And when you do that, then you have your orange juice. It's just like concentrated sugar. How many oranges does it take to make that glass of orange juice? Would you really sit there and eat those whole oranges? Like, let's say it was 10 oranges to make that little glass of juice, you're not going to probably sit there and eat 10 oranges, but that's the healthier thing to eat. Now, the people that, juicing is really great for is somebody whose health is really compromised. Maybe they can't eat well, they're going through treatment or something else is going on. They want to get nutrients. Yeah, then juice is a wonderful way to get those nutrients. But if you can, eat fiber and, it's much better to eat the fruit as a whole fruit. Or if you're going to eat fruit in a smoothie, like if I throw in my strawberry in a smoothie with a blender, the fiber is still all in the strawberry. I'm not taking it out, right? So that's why a smoothie is typically more healthy. I know there's lots of people who promote juices, but the thing is, when you drink juice, concentrated sugar, then you might get a blood sugar and insulin spike. You're putting in way more calories in your body, so that's leading to weight gain for a lot of people. And those, you can just do better by just eating the fruit.
Thank you.
Sounds good. So, Denise, we've come to the close of our time. And I'm sorry to say that we've got to end it now, but I really want to appreciate your passion and your energy and your enthusiasm for something that is a worthwhile cause. And whether or not people subscribe or don't subscribe, I don't know. A lot of people, Denise, there's a lot of people, at least in my life, my circle, who say, I rose to the top of the food chain for a reason. And then it goes, and you want me to eat carrots? That's the level of thought that they have, right? But that's not necessarily enough of a thinking process.
I don't think most of us really do think. Unfortunately, we eat based on culture, what our family, we get our taste buds established very young. And then, by what our parents eat or whoever's taking care of us. And so then most people, we develop this desire for sugar, for a lot of salt, for that fatty feel, and then the processed foods. And so it's hard for people, to change all that. And then the social world is not yet an easy plant-based world. If you feel, eating in restaurants, if that's all you want to do, you're just not going to generally be healthy. But I just want to let you know, if anybody ever wants to email me to ask a question, I'm always happy to answer. derose@comcast.net. And I wish you all the greatest health you can get, and you can control in it.
Oh yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Denise, for your time, your energy, and your wisdom. And
all right.
We love you. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
I love to teach. If you guys know other groups that you're in, they'd like something like this, email me. I love to share the knowledge.
All right. Take care.
Not suffer. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.